Welcome everyone to the Boss Key Podcast. I'm your co-host McQuack306. This is a very special episode. We do not have Jrpg Jesse here for this week. He's in vacation, so we kind of did a swap on vacation weeks. But I do have a very special guest this week. He's a friend of the show, longtime listener, and now he's going to be part of it. I have the architect, SixersOctavian, uh, also known as Jeff in real life. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Like you said, a long time listener, first time caller. I'm excited to finally get called up to the show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on this week. Thank you for coming on short notice. We had other stuff, in the mix, but we talked behind the scenes, and we were able to get this going for the special episode. So we hope you guys enjoy this week's episode. It will be pretty much primarily focused on JRPGs. I'd say 95% of this will be JRPGs. So if you're a fan of JRPGs, this is your episode. If you're, questioning if you've never played one or never got into one, hopefully we can steer you in the right direction on a game that you may be able to, start as your first JRPG and maybe even enjoy the genre itself, since it is a very niche genre. But as we always start, what are you playing, man? What kind of games you're playing currently?
So I'm juggling a lot right now. I usually have a main game on Xbox, and then I will have one going on PlayStation, Switch, and then I'll have like a PC game I bop in and out of. So right now on Xbox 360, I'm playing through Spider-Man 3. On PS4, I have God of War that I'm slowly making my way through. On Switch, I just started on Shin Megami Tensei 5 a couple weeks ago. I'm still very early in that. And then last night on PC, I started Forgotten City on Game Pass.
Okay, yeah, you have a good mixture of different genres, and of course, obviously on different platforms. What are you enjoying more? Like, what's grabbing your attention at the moment?
So definitely not Spider-Man. So earlier this year, I finished Spider-Man on PS4. It was excellent. He's been my favorite superhero since I was, like 3 years old. I played the PS1 game with him climbing up the side of the building on the cover. Excellent game. But sometimes you just need to play something a little bit worse to keep you grounded,
Yeah.
So I got real excited when a couple months ago they announced that they're done with the backwards compatibility program. So and the Spider-Man movie is coming out, so I got all caught up in it. So I ended up buying Spider-Man 3 for Xbox 360. I got a network adapter because I'm still on the one that doesn't have Wi-Fi, just so you get achievements in it. And I finally decided it's time to get started, and it's been a huge mistake. But I'm in too deep at this point.
Okay, you like to finish things through, though, right?
I usually am. Yeah, there's a lot of collectibles and stuff in it that I'm just not going to touch. It has the worst camera I've ever had the displeasure of experiencing in a game. Like, I'll be climbing up a wall, and it'll be cutting under me. I'm looking at Spider-Man's butt as he's going up. It'll cut upside down. All of a sudden, I'm up and down the wall. It does not hold up.
Yeah, I never played that one. That's
Yeah, Spider-Man 2's the one people usually mention as a good one. I don't know if that one's held up. I haven't played that in years, since PS2 back in the day, but Spider-Man 3 does not hold up. If you're thinking about picking it up, I would say no.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 was really good, and it's always brought up in conversations of best Spider-Man games of all time and stuff like that. But people forget of Ultimate Spider-Man, which came out a year after Spider-Man 2, which essentially was the same. It had the same gameplay mechanics, but it had that comic book art style, which I think lends itself today, where it's a lot easier on the eyes, I guess, to play than Spider-Man 2, which was a movie tie-in. But Spider-Man 2 probably the best movie tie-in game, or at least top 5.
Yeah, it honestly probably is with a lot of other ones. I mean, there's what was it, Return of the King?
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
Return of the King. That's a pretty big one. Yeah, that one I think holds up pretty well. But yeah, the Ultimate Spider-Man one you mentioned, I haven't had a chance to play that one yet. But I kind of wish that was the one that I picked up instead. But I don't know. I don't think that would even run on the 360. I have to find the OG Xbox at that point, or I think it's on PS2 as well. I could probably play it on that. But yeah, it's. I mean that graphic style is beautiful. That still looks great today. I cannot say the same about the one that I'm playing.
Well, hopefully you have a better time on the second half. Like I said, I've never played Spider-Man 3, but I just I didn't hear anything good about it. I just avoided it. I just didn't waste my time on it. But hopefully you find it the second half better. Um, Currently, what I've been playing, I've been posting a lot of Kingdom Hearts, a series that I should have gotten into a long time ago. Maybe like when they released on PS2 and I had a PS2. It's action JRPG, Disney, Final Fantasy, and it screamed like something that I should have enjoyed when I was like 12. But I picked up the wrong game. I picked up Kingdom Hearts 2 thinking it was Kingdom Hearts 1 just because it didn't have a 2 on there and I didn't see, the I guess the numerical 2, the Roman 2, Roman numeral 2 and I was just got confused, but I liked the combat. I liked what I saw in the presentation, and then my disc was scratched, and so I couldn't continue it. Uh,
So you never beat two back in the day.
nah, I got up to Tron level. I beat Tron, and then I got into a cutscene, and it just froze. So, at that time, I'm like, 15 years old, no cash. Uh, yeah, I wasn't gonna go to GameStop to get another one. So
Yeah, it's a rapid one for
yeah,
sure.
so I just gave up on the series, and recently I forgot why I had it, and I was like, you know what? Let me see this Kingdom Hearts. Why? Oh, that's right, because Kingdom Hearts 4 got announced, and everyone got so excited, and I actually liked what I saw from the trailer, so I was like, I think this is the best time as ever to try the series and play through it, and really enjoying it. I think I'm more than halfway done already. I'm at Halloween Town, Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close to the end actually. I mean, I haven't played it in a couple of years, but that's definitely one of the last two or three like Disney themed worlds you'll get to.
Yeah, really like this world. I haven't really, I guess, clicked with the other worlds as much, but it's pretty decent. I can see why people loved and jumped on this series from the get go. But I'm hearing that Kingdom Hearts 2 is the best in the series. I'm hearing that I should have tried to get another copy or something at the time, but um, I remember playing it years ago, and it was that first intro. I just remember the intro was just so weird and long. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Uh,
As someone who went from Kingdom Hearts 1, I think I actually pre-ordered that. I remember reading about it in like Game Informer before it came out, and I was very hyped for 2. And then I beat 1, got 2, pre-ordered that one as well. And then yeah, like you said, that opener, it's even as someone who played the first game, it was it was way off the rails at that point. Honestly, no idea what's going on. I didn't realize that Game Boy Advance game was like a pivotal like bridge between 1 and 2, because why would it be? You know,
the chain
with
of
all the
memories,
doing
right?
they're doing. Yeah. hmm
Yeah, and that's the thing that I also saw from the outside. I saw how many devices, how many platforms you needed to have in order to be a Kingdom Hearts fan or to enjoy uh, all what the series was offering. You had PS2, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, uh, a mobile. I think there's a mobile one out there. It's just so many just to try to stay coherent on what's going on the Heartless and the backstory of
Yeah.
that.
The way they name the games too, it's like if you didn't know or if you couldn't look up what the order was, you'd have no idea. Like Chain of Memories, and there's Re-Chain of Memories, Coded. I think there's like is there a Decoded, Recoded, something like that. Birth by Sleep. Like there's just like no rhyme or reason to what they're naming these titles. It's a complete mess.
Yeah, but I mean, so far the first one is very simple to follow, and I've heard that that's pretty much as simple as it's gonna be. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Three kids grow up on an island, they get split apart, and your main character is trying to find his friends. That's the basis of that story, and it's easy to follow.
I
Um,
wish they kept it like that, honestly, because halfway through that game, it goes way off the rails and it never gets back on track. As far as I know, I still haven't played some of like the weird, like the 3DS ones and stuff. I'm behind. I got to do Birth by Sleep still. I think that's the next one I have. But I've done 1, 2, 3, and Chain of Memories, and they never they just like forget about their home. It feels like the dude's mom is in the first like bit, like
mhm.
never mentioned again. Like he just forgets about his mom. Like no big deal. We're hanging with Mickey now.
Just
You know?
gets retconned.
Yeah, and she just gets like blown away. Never. He doesn't think about her ever again.
Uh,
Maybe I missed something, but he got over it real quick. I don't know.
Probably in the mobile game that you didn't play, that was Japan only or something. Um,
Japanese only mobile music game that's like pivotal to understanding the complex relationship between Sora and his parents. Yeah,
that was only
absolutely.
available for a year or something. Are you gonna pre-order the fourth one?
Microtransactions. I probably will. I mean, it's assuming depending on which platforms it ends up on. But I like what they showed. I don't. I mean, I gotta assume that they're still gonna work in the Disney stuff. But I really like what they're doing with the graphics and the reveal. It looks very nice. I thought. I'm hoping for like a Star Wars, maybe Marvel. Disney's buying everything up, so I'm sure they could squeeze some nice new worlds in there.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about Kingdom Hearts, this, like mentioned earlier, this episode is going to be primarily on JRPGs and more specifically our favorite JRPGs of all time. Um, I wanted to, throw it to you first. What's like one game that you always mention on your top list of must play JRPGs or your favorites?
So my favorite game of all time is a JRPG. It's Final Fantasy IX. Um, Anyone who follows me knows I talk about it any chance I get. Um, it's the first one I played. I don't think that's a coincidence. I feel like a lot of people tend to gravitate towards whatever introduced them to a series as their favorites. My favorite Final Fantasy, favorite game, favorite RPG, favorite JRPG. You know,
Hmm.
I think you have played it.
Yeah, I played it. That's the last Final Fantasy on PlayStation, or at least like core Final Fantasy game that we
Yeah.
received, and last traditional Final Fantasy, right? Kind of like mages and knights and stuff like that. Before they
Yeah, it's
went
the last
kind of like
fantasy one.
weird. Yeah,
Until now, I think 16 looks like they're coming back to the medieval vibe, which I've been waiting for, honestly. I guess you could argue 12 is kind of like that too, but there's like spaceships and stuff, so it's not 100% there.
yeah. Okay. What? How old were you when you played it?
I think I got it when I was 10. I remember I got like some gift cards for Toys R Us at like Christmas or something. And they had commercials for it at the time, like on TV. I don't know if they still have like the newest Final Fantasy's advertising on TV, but at the time I didn't know anything about it. I saw Vivi, the one black mage, she was like making a big fireball, and I remember thinking it was cool. And Garnet or someone was swinging from like the rope. I'm like, okay. So I'm at Toys R Us and I just see it. I'm like, oh, this is from the commercial. It might even been like a Coke commercial, honestly. Like Coca-Cola, I think there's like a crossover with that, which is kind of weird. But I used the gift cards on it, didn't really know what to expect, and it was not like anything else I've played before at that point.
Okay. My first not JRPG but Final Fantasy game was actually Final Fantasy One. Uh,
Oh
the
wow.
on the NES, but that's because my uncle at the time, I've talked about him on the show. He had like so many NES games, and growing up, when I would go over to my aunt's house, like my mom worked for his mom because they had like a daycare, I guess. So I'd go over, and the main thing I'd be able to play the video games, NES, Super Nintendo. He had them all, and he had this huge stack of NES, and I always want like for some reason you have a Super Nintendo and the regular Nintendo, and I always went for the Nintendo. Um, I think because nobody went after it, and so I'd go there, and I remember looking at this cover art, and I'm like, this looks pretty cool, and played it, and I loved it, and for the longest that was my favorite, even through all the other ones because I didn't get to play Final Fantasy 4, 5, and all the other ones, and even when I got a PSP, that's I saw the remake or the remastering, and I picked it up right away, and I said that this was my favorite one. And my friend at the time, he's like, "Wait, why is that one your favorite?" I'm like, "That's all I know. That this is the Final Fantasy that I know of." He's like, "So you've never played 7?" And I was like, "No." And so I had a PSP at the time. He's like, "Dude, I'll buy it for you." And he bought it for me. It was like $7, on the digital store, and I was in college and played Final Fantasy 7. I'm like, dude, this is amazing. And he's like, yep, wait till you play 8 and wait till you play 9. And that whole summer, like in between classes, I was playing all the Final Fantasies that I can on my PSP. And yeah, I eventually got to 9. Loved that one as well. Um, but I think my favorite, the one that I always mention too, it's a mixture. It's more action as well, but it's still a JRPG, which is Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core. Um, that one just blew me away with updated graphics. PSP at the time. Uh, Zack, I love Zack as a character. He knew what he wanted to be, and he achieved it. He got what he wanted, and he still continued, to follow his dream and live by that motto. And really like that story and how it kind of leaned or linked up with FF7, which who knows how Square Enix is going to be handling that now that they've changed the story on the remake.
Yeah, I feel like most people in our age range started with 7, so it's kind of wild that you started with the original, and I was with like on the tail end. I feel like at that point JRPGs were I don't want to say slowing down, but it was not no longer the hot thing as much. But yeah, I've not had a chance to play Crisis Core yet. My PSP, I think I had Tony Hawk's Underground 2, maybe 1 or 2, and then Metal Gear Acid, which is like a card game. I can't think of any other games I had for it.
Oh wow. Yeah,
I
I
know.
have the Acid games as well. Not much love because of the cards, but uh, I still liked it. I, I I like card games.
Then you're gonna love Chain of Memories when you get there.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear about the when people tell me why. I ask them why don't you like Chain of Memories? What was it? The story? Was it what was it? They're like I just can't get into cards. And I saw like gameplay screenshots, and I'm like that's Metal Gear Acid. That's other card games that I've played that you can only move or attack depending on the card that you have.
Yeah, the card aspect. I mean, I haven't played the original Game Boy Advanced version. They like redid it as part of the collection, but that version I did play, and it wasn't that it was bad. It's the card stuff was fine. I mean, it was kind of fun to honestly. You can set up decks a certain way to like wreck bosses, which was nice. But it was I did it right after I beat Kingdom Hearts 1,
Hmm.
and you honestly do the same levels over and over again. Like everything you just did, you just do again, but now with like card battles. So I would definitely recommend a break in between if you're the kind of guy that gets like burned out by repetition.
Okay. Yeah, I've asked that before on where to go next, and I've gotten mixed results in terms of just go to like how they released it. Go to Kingdom Hearts 2 or do this, do that. So I'll see once I finish Kingdom Hearts 1 where I go to next. Um, but a game that I remember specifically at the around the time that Kingdom Hearts was big, that I always mention too as one of my favorite JRPGs, is one from Nintendo uh, called Golden Sun: The Lost Age. I don't know if you've played this one before.
I have not, but I've listened to the podcast enough where it feels like I have. I just love how much you love that game. I love when people have like games like that that aren't necessarily popular. That you take 10 people and maybe only like one or two have played it. But you're just so passionate about it. It's nice.
Yeah, man.
And you play the second one first or the first one first?
Yeah, I this happened twice, and I think I mentioned it a little bit on the show. Basically, mom taking me to Target. I never asked her for like anything. Probably on the fifth trip that I go with her, I'm like I look at the the glass shelf that they would have, and I look for the cheapest priced game that I could find, and I would just ask for it. That's how I got Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers on GBA, which was like a Diablo-esque style game on the GBA. But I saw that cover and it looked really cool. But again, it didn't have a two. It didn't have like the sequel, like Golden Sun 2 or anything like that. It just said Golden Sun: The Lost Age. And I saw that cover and it looked so like up my alley. Picked it up and I was immediately hooked. I was like, wow, this is like Pokemon meets Final Fantasy. Um, in a weird way. And each character has their own abilities, but you can customize their abilities. They don't need to be, this guy's a fire, element wielder, but he doesn't have to be. You can make him into a fire water, or you can make him into a fire earth. All this type of combinations, and the summons, which brought up the Final Fantasy with Ifrit and Shiv, all those other summons, they had that too in Golden Sun. And on this little GBA console, portable console, it was amazing what they could do. I basically had a Super Nintendo JRPG on the go, um, and the story was very easy to understand, which was crazy because it was a sequel. And I didn't know about it was a sequel until much later, where I saw. I guess that's when I started going online and learning about games and stuff like that through IGN and game facts and stuff like that, that I found out that there was another Golden Sun and that I had played the second one. So I think I played Golden Sun 2 when I was like, I want to say 13, 12 or 13, and then I didn't play the first one until like I was 16 or 17, when I had money and I could look for that game. But that's, yeah, I hardly ever see Golden Sun being mentioned, but when someone mentions it online, I like to hype up that tweet. I like to hype up whoever's talking about it, because it's that good. And I wish Nintendo, the way they do things, I wish they would port it to the Switch or something, because it's available on the Wii U, but we all know that that's a dead console.
Yeah. I mean, there might be hope they're bringing back the Advance Wars games, which I loved. I at least loved the first one. I don't think I ever played the second one. But I mean, I feel like Golden Sun's more popular than those. If they're giving that another shot,
I hope so,
maybe
man.
Dream's not dead. Yeah.
I hope so, because I'd buy that in a heartbeat, or however they do it. I hope they don't do it like a subscription, but I'd buy it in a heartbeat. They don't even have to remaster it. If they just port it, if they just say, here's the classic games on the go, with basic functionality of like, oh, you can fast forward, like the new basic
Quality
porting.
of life. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a JRPG that I always love to mention, and it's always near and dear to my heart. And hopefully more people can play it, or if you guys are listening to it, look it up, see if it's up your alley. And for those 10 people that have a Wii U, try downloading it. It's like $10. Uh, what's another one you got on your mind? Favorite JRPGs?
It's honestly so hard to narrow it down. Honestly, another one that I think you know is going to get mentioned is Lost Odyssey. We could
Yeah.
jump into that if you want.
Yeah, I think we'd get stoned to death if we don't mention Lost Odyssey.
Yeah, it's a hot one. People ask for Lost Odyssey 2 all the time, which is wild to see because I think it came out 14 years ago at this point, 2008, and
Yeah,
there's never ever been like a hint of a sequel. the developer is now working on like mobile games for Apple Arcade. But it's crazy. People loved it so much that they're still asking for something from it to come back.
You so
How
so
far into it are you at this point? I don't try not to spoil anything for you.
I haven't gone too far. I think I may be like 4 hours in, which is
Oof.
nothing to a JRPG game. I know I got to some. I went through like the mountain area. I fought the griffin, beat the griffin. I'm like at some beach area, and I'm about to fight some. I think like a scorpion or something like that. So
So is the party just the first three?
yeah, like it's only three people in my party.
Yeah, you got a ways to go for sure. I think once you get, I'm trying to remember the order. I think the next two you get, it really starts picking up. But I mean, I think it's pretty good from the jump, especially that opening scene still holds up very well, as opposed to like a Kingdom Hearts where we're still, Kingdom Hearts 2 where we're still trashing it like 15 years later.
Uh, Tell me about your experience with this game, like leading up to release, and or when you actually picked up the game and got to play it your first time.
So I got that. I think Blue Dragon came out first. I got them both around the same time, 2000, probably by like mid and 2008. Whenever Lost Odyssey came out, I had them both at that point. I tried Blue Dragon first. It didn't I didn't really stick with it. I didn't beat that one for another 15 years. Probably not that one, probably like 10 or 12. But Lost Odyssey, I dabbled with that one as well, bounced off of it, came back to it a few years later. Just because I was in college and stuff, I didn't have time to really sink into a big JRPG like that. The writing in that game is just stupendous. It's honestly as good as it gets. The short stories, I really recommend trying to seek all those out. They don't, they're not necessary for the plot. You can still understand everything if you don't do it. But just the writing, it's so like I don't get emotional at games like at all. But like two or three of those short stories just hit just right. Like honestly, some of the best writing I've experienced in a game ever. And I don't know if it's cheating or not because like gameplay's not really involved. You're kind of just like reading the story, but I'm going to count it. Party dynamic is great. The way they interact. There's characters you haven't met yet that I'm not going to get into, but the way everyone interacts. There's growth between the characters. A lot of games, like someone will join the party, and then after X amount of time, they're kind of useless. You know,
Yeah,
but yeah. So everyone has a part to play. Like there's not really anyone. And I guess you could argue the last character is kind of like why are they there? But they have their part to play too. Um, no secondary characters just tagging on for no reason that hurts your immersion with the story. Like why is this guy still following me? It's been 40 hours. Go home type deal. Um, yeah, I mean the characters grow, they develop. It's a great climactic end. No weirdness where like some Final Fantasy games, the final not just Final Fantasy games, just JRPGs in general. They'll
yeah,
do a bait and switch at the end.
yeah. Like
Like oh,
so
you're
this
definitely
this one-
God.
so this one had like a concrete ending type of thing.
Yeah, it's a satisfying ending, satisfying story beginning to end. No weirdness, no it doesn't go off the rails. And it's something I one of my pet peeves is when the story just loses focus and goes in like a totally different direction than it needs to. This like you could see where it's heading from the beginning.
Yeah, I remember. I so when when I was getting next gen consoles at the time, I had decided to get an Xbox first because I liked what I saw at my friend's house, Gears of War 2. And I remember the Xbox was able to, I guess, look up or download like trailers and stuff like that when they had them available. And I remember downloading and watching the Lost Odyssey trailer, and it always stuck to me because it had the White Rabbit song, and it just had like the intro to the game. It was like that basically was the trailer, and I was like, this dude's gonna be taking on like this like 1,000-man army, and now there's robots. And I remember, this is all in the intro to the pretty much the first 3 minutes that people play, uh, but then you see like the sky open up and it's just lava, and I was like, this is some crazy stuff. This is like I want to know what this game is. I remember at the time this was like probably 2008 when I got my Xbox, and I just never picked it up because I never, I would go to GameStop and I never would see it. I never would see a copy of Lost Odyssey, so I never saw it. And so every single time I'd get hyped for it, go to GameStop, nobody has it. But I remember finally, grabbing it, got a physical copy last year, and it's still in the books. That thing's still gonna be played, and it's gonna be beaten this year. That's my goal. If I beat any game this year, whether any of the Kingdom Hearts or whatever it is, I need to beat Lost Odyssey just to put that on the
Yes.
notch of JRPGs, finished. Um, so I usually do this though. I usually play like a game, really get hyped, but like Kingdom Hearts, I'll probably beat the first one and then go on to something else because I can't do 8 Kingdom Hearts games in a row.
No,
Um,
for sure. I'm doing that with Yakuza at the moment. I just finished Yakuza 3 a couple months ago, and I'll probably wait maybe another month or two before I even think about 4, just because if you rip too many in a row, I don't know about you, but I get burned out. And the last thing I'm trying to do is like teach myself to like hate the game that I like. So yeah, I feel like Kingdom Hearts is definitely one that you can do that too. I did that. I did Kingdom Hearts, Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts 2, 1, 2, 3, and I haven't touched it in like 2 or 3 years. I'm due for Birth by Sleep. I'll probably try to get that this year too.
yeah, I think I'll find my copy and I'll play Birth by Sleep on the go or something like that since I can play it on my PSP. I don't mind playing it on the PSP, but if it means that I can open up the home console to something else. Uh, One huge JRPG that I think a lot of people know about now and have been talking about for a while now, Elden Ring. I know you just became an Elden Lord. You just beat the
I
game.
am an Elden. Yep, I made it.
You,
Mama, I made it. No,
you recently beat it. What, last week? 2 weeks ago? Uh,
uh, I think the beginning of last week. Yeah, I wrapped the last achievement.
I mean, it's already been talked about for so long, but what's like your synopsis of the game? Like, how did you feel about it?
I loved it. I was a little hesitant going in. My only Souls experience was maybe 5 hours of Dark Souls 1 on 360,
Yeah.
and I remember it was like it ran terribly. Like I had a hard time. I don't remember it being difficult. I just remember it being like choppy, and it's just I just dropped it. Um, but the hype got me. I was calling it Elden Ring. Um, the big capital L before it came out. I'm eating my words. It was excellent. It's my game of the year right now. Um, yeah, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I think the open world aspect of it really helped me get across that finish line.
Yeah, I knew nothing of this game. Surprisingly, I huge Dark Souls fan. I've played them all. I've gotten the platinum on Dark Souls 1 and 2 on the PS3, with how choppy those were, and I'm like one trophy away from Bloodborne, from getting that platinum. But I really went media blind on Elden Ring, and it surprised me still, knowing the pedigree of the developer. Uh, it's like on the top 5 of my favorite games now, um, at least for
Of
right
all
now,
time, wow,
of all time. And
wow.
it's hard to get up there because I have a lot of just older games on there, and I've let it sit. I haven't played it in a while, just because I'm playing everything else. But there was a time where it really hooked me. Like I did not want to play anything else, and I kept constantly thinking about it, and thinking about bosses, and the levels and how to get past it. But I really feel like this is one of those games that we talk about for years. We still bring up Skyrim to this day. We bring up Skyrim. Uh, you know, games within their own genre. People still talk about Call of Duty 4 as one of the best FPSs ever made. Doom and all these, Halo, all these games. But Elden Ring, I think, will stand for a long time as a game where this is how you do open world, or this is how you do, boss battles, or exploration. And I think exploration is the biggest key to this game. That it felt like I guess the time before the internet. I mean, I think we're the same age, so we kind of understand playing
Hmm.
video games before constantly, going onto a social media platform and finding things out and stuff like that. But on in a time with social media being so big, I still felt that everybody was finding out things for the first time, regardless if you're 10 hours in or 100 hours in. People were still finding things out, and I felt like that was like the magic key to this game, that everyone was new. It felt like a new game no matter how many hours you've played, and I really loved that aspect of Elden Ring.
It did feel like, just being on Twitter or something, like everyone was on the same boss at almost the same time. Like the first week we're all talking about Margit, or however you pronounce it. Then maybe we all posting like Renala videos at the same time. Like I thought that was cool. And there was a week where we're all on Radon. It felt like it was something everyone kind of experienced within the same time frame. Like I mean, some people rushed it, but it felt like the majority of people, like just the boss was just trend right around when I was getting there, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think even screenshots were common. Like you mentioned, Margaret, the first main boss, and people taking those screenshots of you're in front of the castle, and
Oh yeah.
it just felt like an accomplishment, like kind of like and what I liked too was the community. Everyone was like, yeah, keep going, or you just that's just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg.
First off, great work type deal. Yeah, no, it was pretty. I mean, as someone who hasn't played a lot of Souls games, that difficulty factor is intimidating because I'm like, I'm 31 now, I'm getting old, so my reflexes aren't what they were. So I'm picturing, okay, I just dropped $60 in this game. I'm about to get bodied and return it or just consider my shelf gathering dust. But it's nice. I thought that with the open world, if you got stuck, you could go somewhere else. Like you kind of grind. I don't know. Can you do that in the other Souls games? Like as much, or is it different? Because I don't have like a ton of experience with those.
The other Souls games, the bosses were blocks. They were basically, uh, you go through an area and you have to defeat this boss in order to proceed. And you get to the main hub world, or the main area, and you have like, I think you have like two routes. You can go left or you can go right. And if you went left, you'd find out soon enough that you were very under leveled. But if you went right, that's where you're supposed to be going, and that's where it kind of leads you off. So it kind of wasn't. It's not anything like Elden Ring, and that was just the first Dark Souls. All the other ones are very the same pattern, very similar, structure, if you will, on environment and level design. Elden Ring literally just threw that out the door and was like, here's the entire world, go wherever you want. You can start wherever you want. And if you can't beat this boss, go somewhere else. And I really enjoyed that about Elden Ring. I think the developers really learned.
So if not to derail this whole podcast, but if I was to go and say I was going to do another Souls game, which one would you recommend for someone who liked the freedom of Elden Ring? And just to give you a little background, my build, I just stacked strength. I jumped around. I hacked at people with this halberd the whole game. So I didn't really dabble with magic and nothing ranged. It was very much like a, caveman running around with a club, just because I didn't feel confident enough to like stack. faith or intelligence for magic. So, is there a game that you'd recommend for someone who is trying to dabble in a few more Souls games?
There's one, but it's kind of like one of those where I'm iffy about because okay, so background, I also go just all strength. I do melee builds. I typically find an anime character that I love, like Guts from Berserk, or Cloud, or Claire from Claymore, and I kind of mimic off of them whatever sword they use. So I usually go melee. For this though, I'm kind of hesitant to say Bloodborne, only because Bloodborne is primarily um, weapons like melee, you know, and hardly any magic from what I remember. And there's no shield in the game. There's one shield, but you never want to use it because it's even a joke in the game. It's kind of just there to make fun of shield users in a way. But it's very fast paced, and the only reason why I'm hesitant to even suggest that is because I don't know if they're ever going to do a 60 frames per second patch. I think that's the only reason why. I think that's the only thing that's hindering it. You're coming from Elden Ring, probably 60 frames per second on Xbox Series X, and you have
Mm-hmm.
you have really good performance on that. Um, on Bloodborne, it's at 30 frames per second, and it's kind of jarring going from 60 frames to a 30 frame per second game. It's still an amazing game. It's just the performance. I'm kind of hesitant on suggesting that one.
Man, I am playing through Spider-Man 3 on Xbox 360 right now. I think I can handle it. I mean, I yeah, no, I didn't think that would be as jarring as it is, but yeah, I mean, that Bloodborne was actually the one I was kind of eyeing up.
Yeah,
That or the first Dark Souls, I guess, were the two contenders I was looking at.
yeah. Dark Souls is still good, but it's very basic. It does show its age, in terms of the level design, like I just mentioned. But Bloodborne, I think what helps it is the aesthetic of the dark gothic nature of it.
Yeah, the plot for sure.
So it has that going. It's not really medieval. It's that Victorian gothic, church type looking stuff, and the gameplay just pushes you to play faster. You get hit and you lose health, but there's also this bar where you can regain that health back if you attack the enemy. Um, so it's very fast paced. I love the aesthetic of it. The weapons, they have these things called trick weapons, um, which you can have a sword that turns into a hammer. Um, it sounds weird because it is weird, but when you see it in motion, you're kind of like, okay, I can dig this. I dig this. I could play this. So I would go with that one. I think a lot of people would suggest also Sekiro, um, but
That's the one I keep saying is like the hardest one.
yeah, and that's where I was gonna say. I'm like, I think that's the hardest one though. But I would always go with Bloodborne. I think that was my favorite until Elden Ring.
Okay, yeah. So, like I said, I'm working through God of War now, and then I have the first Last of Us queued up, and then after that, Bloodborne, I guess, is a contender. Throw in the backlog.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good pick. Um, any last JRPG you want to mention, or even do a quick run through of JRPGs? That way, you don't feel like you miss something later on and you get caught.
There's honestly so many. I feel like I didn't you know elaborate enough on why I like Final Fantasy IX. It's just the world is spectacular. The medieval vibe. The characters are weird. Like there's like a weird hippo guy. His name's Hip Hall. Unbelievable stuff that no one in the world just mentions. Just hippo people walking around. So that I want to mention Hip Hall. Um, Other games, I don't really have a list of like favorite games. Recent ones that I've liked, Octopath Traveler for sure. If you like that HD 2D style from turn-based combat, I think that was excellent. I just beat Strangers of Paradise, the Final Fantasy Souls like. That was pretty weird. It was very weird, but I enjoyed it. Enjoyed my time with it. Um, you played either of those?
Yeah, I've actually played all of those that you mentioned, but I've only dabbled and I haven't started Stranger Paradise because it came out with Elden Ring. So anything that came out during Elden
Fair.
Ring was like it was gonna be put in the back burner. I bought Horizon Forbidden West 2 days later. Elden Ring release, and I haven't touched it since. Um, so there's a lot in the back burner now with Kingdom Hearts and Lost Odyssey, uh, and all the other games that I have on the backlog. They're now being put in the front. So I don't. Yeah, I haven't touched it, but that's on the list as well.
So what you're saying, it's like it always like gives me pause when I hear someone say they have nothing to play because like I don't know about you, just from hearing you say that like my backlog is gigantic. Like I could do nothing but play video games for years and not run out of ones to play. So yeah, I get that. It's definitely harder to find time than games I want to play for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely as I think as I mean I can speak for myself. I don't know if it's the same for you, but as I get older, it's not finding a game isn't the issue. It's finding the time, finding that balance of, hey, I'm at work 10 hours, 11 hours a day. You know, minus getting ready, minus working out when I get home, minus dinner, minus time. You got to spend time, with your loved ones. I have my wife, make time for her and, what our interests are. And then by the time I squeeze out whatever I have left, it's like I have an hour. And at that time, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what is that hour going to be used for? Is it going to be used for a cinematic first, single player game that I have to pay attention to the story, or is it going to be something a little bit easier, like a racing game or a platformer, something like that, So definitely, time is the enemy as I get older.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's just what it's like being in your 30s trying to squeeze time for games. It's, maybe when we're old and decrepit in like a nursing home, we'll have the 12, 15 hours a day. I'm trying to squeeze in for these, but it's a ways away.
yeah, but either way, I take advantage and I enjoy the time that I do have, because that's why I guess that's why I'm very specific on what I'm playing, um, because and I'm so everywhere. I wish I had that focus that you have in terms of like these are the games that I'm going to be playing. This is on PlayStation, this is on Xbox, this is on Switch, whatever. For me, it's kind of like okay, I have an hour and a half today, or I have 30 minutes. That all depends on what I'm going to focus on. I don't want to put, if I have 30 minutes, I don't want to put it on Lost Odyssey when I'm like, man, I don't want to play 30 minutes and then like just be in the middle of something and not being able to save or I go back to it and I'm like, who's that? Why am I in this area? You know? Uh,
That's the risk with JRPGs. Yeah, if you put them down, you come back and you don't know what the hell's going on. Or
yeah.
you could just be playing through Kingdom Hearts 10 hours a day and still not know what's going on. So yeah, I get that happens. I got one for you though.
What's up?
Hear me out. So MLB The Show. I would argue the Road to the Show mode where you create your baseball player is like a turn-based RPG. You're taking your at bats. You're only playing when they're on there. So if you need like a half hour, just to, like relax, put on some mindless thing, just hitting the hit button. Highly recommend.
Okay. And it's on Game Pass too. That'll be our Game Pass
Yeah,
mention of the week. MLB The Show. Uh, I've never played
it's
any of them.
it's not fun. They're good. I mean, I haven't played a baseball game since I think 2K12 or something. Like the last year's show was the first time I touched one in almost 10 years, and I mean, the jump from last decade to this decade was wild. But at its core, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I mean I just usually skip, or I don't even skip because I don't even think about them. But I don't pick up sports titles, um, just because I mean they'll be $2 in 2 years, and by then it's kind of outdated. um, and so I'm more of I'd rather play, or I'd rather go to the event than play the sports game. That's just me
Nah, for
though.
sure,
That's
for
just
sure.
me.
You know, that's fair. I mean, I'd rather be at a Sixers game than playing, 2K as well. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, just last week I was at a Angel game, and although I wish I was at a Dodger game, um,
Cheating on your team.
huh?
Cheating on your team.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a weird experience. Even telling my wife, so do I root for them? Do I boo them? Because she's like, no, just enjoy the show. I'm like, okay, I'll try.
Just grab a beer, hot dog, just enjoy yourself
Pretty
for sure.
much. But yeah, that's why I tend to lean away from sports games. Actually, the only sports games I've ever bought were um, the NBA 2K. I bought NBA 2K10, and I bought last year's only because Kobe Bryant was on the cover for those.
That's a nice one. Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I bought those NBA games, just because Kobe's on it, and I love the Lakers. That's pretty much any LA team I go for LA team, except for Clippers and Angels. But
Do the Angels even count?
they don't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
But
Yeah, I mean, I bought the last sports game I actually bought was last year's MLB The Show, because I was thinking it was like I mean, it was the first PlayStation Studios game on Xbox. It felt like a collector's piece, and after the season ended, it was like $10. Why not?
yeah, it was kind of historic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, $10, whatever.
Just to wrap things up, wanted to mention some of my favorite JRPGs. I don't have a list either handy at all times, but just thinking about the games that I enjoy playing, Final Fantasy is always going to be up there. I could play majority of the Final Fantasy games. Golden Sun that I've mentioned, Persona, and I guess yeah, I put Persona. I just got into Shin Megami, just like you. I'm playing Shin Megami Tensei 5 on the go. I'm very early on. I think level 13 is my main character.
I
Uh,
think you're right around where I am. He's still in the desert.
yeah, desert area.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah. What do you think so far?
really interesting. It caught my eye because um, I'm starting to understand. Okay, just collect or try to find the demons, and even trying to recruit demons is like a rewarding and frustrating thing at the same time, just because there's no rhyme or reason on how to obtain these demons. You can talk to them and be like, try to be their friend, and a lot of the times they'll hey, give me some more money. Hey, give me some of your HP. All right, thanks, bye.
It's sucking my life and it just dips. Okay. Yeah. No, yeah, it's like a guessing game. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. It's a weird thing that I just got robbed and beaten down, and I didn't get anything. And then on the next one, I'm rude to them, and I still don't get anything from them. And then I tried doing a mixture of it, and I get the demon. It's a weird thing, but really enjoying it. It's really fun. I like the audio, the music, the battle theme. Um, it's interesting to say the least for a Shin Megami Tensei game, at least for a first timer, because I've only played the Persona games, which are like I guess the side games.
Yeah. It's a spin off that's like a bigger series now at this point. But yeah, this is my first proper Shin Megami Tensei game as well. And it's not. I haven't been like grabbed yet. Like I'm not feeling it, but I've been enjoying the demon recruitment aspect that you mentioned. I think the battles are kind of fun, but I feel like I gotta do a lot of grinding before I get to this first boss, which I don't love for a first boss.
Yeah, and then there's other ones like completely opposite of the spectrum of Shin Megami, which is the Dragon Quest series. I feel like Dragon Quest, I can play that while something's on the TV and just enjoy grinding because of the music, the colorful characters, of course. That art style um, is so famous, and it's just an easier game to just enjoy. Just kind of sit back You see a cutscene, you're like, oh, cutscene, and then all right, it's back to the grind. And it's one of those that I don't mind grinding in those games.
100% agreed. Yeah, so that's like the whole series. I think I played through the first two on the Switch, and they really are just great games. Like turn your brain off, walk around, do some battles, heal up, do more battles, and yeah, I mean it's just JRPG comfort food, you know. Like it doesn't get old that format they have.
Yeah, and it's just Dragon Quest, Monster Hunter series. I don't know if you've ever played those, but I love the Monster Hunter series. Um, have you tried those?
I've played Monster Hunter World.
Okay, enjoyed it? Not enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it. I played through the story. Once the story was done, I didn't really feel the need to keep hunting and like leveling up my stuff. Um, I kind of want to check out the one on Switch. I think that looks cool. The stories one specifically, I think, looks more up my alley.
Okay, yeah, the turn based one as opposed to the
Yeah.
action. Yeah, yeah, I heard a lot of good things on that one as well. I still have yet to dabble on that one, but that's on my go to. Another game that I'll find later. Um, but
Yeah, I need to pick that up.
and with that is our final segment of the show. It is the boss pick of the week, and since we have Jeff this week as a special guest, I'll let you handle that one. Do you have a boss pick for us, man?
I do. So since it is a JRPG themed episode, um, I had to go with the JRPG. So I don't know how what the spoiler policy is for 25-year-old games. Um,
Yeah, I mean, spoiler for those listening on the next game that's going to be mentioned for 25-year-old game.
okay, sorry, I thought I heard my baby crying in the background. So anyway, Final Fantasy VII and Disc 1, you fight a boss called Genova Life. You fight Genova a few times throughout the game. Um, that's pretty much the most famous spoiler in JRPGs, maybe games in general.
Yeah,
Yeah, so Sephiroth, the big bad, comes down, kills one of your party members. Um, then afterwards you segue right into a battle as her theme plays in the background. This is different than the normal boss theme that plays. Usually it's like a power rock type song.
yeah,
And this one, I think they changed her name to be Aerith. I'm gonna call her Ares because that's what it was, in the early 2000s when I started playing this.
okay.
But yes, the song plays, nice calming melody, and it goes right from her death into the battle. I don't think there's really much of a transition. The battle itself, I don't think is especially hard. Just the whole vibe, I feel, is really memorable, and I love games that kind of have like a quieter theme, like for certain battles. It's not like it feels like a special event when the boss theme is not being played. You
Yeah,
remember this battle?
I remember this one. This one took me off guard because it was like right after a significant death in the game, and you're still like kind of trying to process it. You're processing what just happened, and you're trying to feel like what's going on, like already a boss battle, and it's not like you said. It's not the traditional like bombastic heavy type music that normally encompasses a boss fight. It's more just somber. It's very calm and like you said, soothing in a way. And you're like, this is a boss fight, and even afterwards, you're still left with like, wait, what just happened? Like, is this for real? And as you're trying to process it, your characters are trying to process it. It was crazy. It was a crazy moment, for real.
Yeah, it's shocking, and you don't even have a moment to catch your breath. You're just in a battle. I think when you win, it doesn't even play the fanfare that the series plays after every battle. And at that point, I don't know if you even know if she's dead, or I think they might explain that afterwards. But that just stands out to me as like a quintessential JRPG fight. That's more about the story than the actual battle itself.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing pick. Just like on that alone that you mentioned, that it's not just a battle. It's not just like okay, this is the final boss battle and we're gonna save the world. This is more like you're kind of really pushed into it without any preparation and preparation for the boss or what just happened, what just you know pretty much happened to one of your companions that you've had. Um, I remember that fight. I don't even remember if it's the end of disc one.
I think after you beat Genova, there's like a little bit where you talk and they explain that she's like dead, and then I believe it's the end of disc one. It's either right at the end or right before the end. It's been years since I played that game though.
Yeah, I think that's a solid pick. Just it's just everything. The atmosphere of losing someone and then fighting right after. Um, yeah, I really like that fight. Now that you mentioned it, I remember that fight, um, and wow, it was very significant for that game, and I think for the storytelling, it did in both the cutscenes and dialogue, and then with just the boss battle.
For sure, yeah, it just felt more personal than a lot of the other fights in that game, in games in general, really.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our show. Thank you again, Jeff, for joining us this week. I'm, really happy that you were able to make it on short notice. Love talking JRPGs with you online, and now, over the podcast. Yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege. Like I said, I listen all the time, and I'm glad that you're able to squeeze me in. Hopefully, I didn't embarrass myself too much. But yeah, appreciate it.
No, you did very well. Do you want to give out your Twitter handle or anything like that for people to know where to find you and where to find your Xbox port begging?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SixersOctavian.
Okay, and yeah, that was our show. Jesse will be back next week after his siesta, um, and we'll get back to just talking about daily news and our games. Thank you again, Sixers Octavian, for joining me. I love this episode. Really love talking JRPGs, and I'll see you everyone on the next episode of the Boss Key Podcast. Thanks for joining us this week on the Boss Key Podcast with your hosts McQuack306 and
Jrpg. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at BossKey_podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if you like, you can also follow us personally at McQuack306 and Jesse_Fregoso.
Join us next time for another episode of the Boss Key Podcast.
Ha ha ha!